Sonic Adventure 2, a game that needs no introduction, considered by many as the greatest 3D Sonic game to ever release. I don't think I have to tell the whole story, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with it. But if you're familiar with the content that I make on my channel, you probably know that this game went through a lot of changes to get to how it is today. From little things to Sonic's shoes and gameplay elements, to Shadow having a completely different design to the final look. So today, we're gonna look back and see what Sonic Adventure 2 could have looked like. So like always, let's start off with the development of this game and what they had in mind when making it. So coming off the success of Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Team had a lot of pressure to make another great game. At this time, Sonic Team moved their studios over to San Francisco, where originally Sega Technical Institute used to be. So Takashi Iizuka and his team moved to America, where Yuji Naka would stay in Japan to work in games like Phantasy Star Online. Now, one of the first big things that they wanted to do with the game was expand the storytelling from Sonic Adventure 1, and they thought the best way to do that was to introduce a new character. So even though they didn't have the name yet, a Dark Sonic was something that they've always planned to be in the game. Something that the team also decided to do was drop the Adventure Hub so that the team could focus on making the main playstyles as good as they can be. But that also means they had to cut back on some playstyles from Adventure 1, and they stuck with the three: Sonic Speed Style, Knuckles Treasure Hunting, and Gamma's Mech stages, replacing Gamma with Eggman due to fan requests of wanting to control Eggman in-game. Now, one big thing that the team wanted to include but never got the chance to was the idea of multiple branching story paths. Now, one example that was given was that Sonic would be trapped in a sinking submarine, and he either had the choice of trying to get the sub to safety or to try and escape the sub, and your decision will affect the story and result in different outcomes. But due to time constraints or just not being able to execute on the idea never made it past the concept stages. Now I want to take a look at some of the concept art, because we do have some that looks pretty cool here. So when looking at a lot of the concept art, the one that shows up the most is City Escape for Sonic's level. And when coming up with the levels for the game, Sonic Team took heavy inspiration for their base of operations in San Francisco, because when looking at the concept arts, you can see Sonic running down the iconic hilly roads that are a staple in San Francisco. And in another concept art, we can see Sonic running on what looks to be the Golden Gate Bridge. And originally, this was supposed to show up in City Escape, but they eventually reworked it into Radical Highway. And in these concept arts, we can also see the new feature that would become a staple in the Sonic series: rail grinding. Now, this was a feature that they wanted to implement since the beginning, and they even made some new shoes for Sonic. But sometime in the game's development, Soap, a shoe brand that is known for making shoes specifically for rail grinding, hit up Sega so that they can add these shoes into the game. And if you look around the stage, you can see ads for Soap all over the game. This was probably much later on into the game's development, because in early demos of SA2, Sonic is seen wearing his classic shoes. So this change was probably made much later in development. Moving on, we can see some concept art for the stages like Iron Gate, Metal Harbor, Aquatic Mines, and Pumpkin Hill. Now, something that is interesting in these concept arts is that the only characters that are shown off are Sonic, Knuckles, and Eggman. There is no mention of Shadow, Rouge, or Tails at all, which we'll get to later. But speaking of Shadow and Rouge, time for my favorite part. So, Shadow being the new big character of the game, he went through many different designs and names until they landed on Shadow's name and design. Some of his earliest designs had him wearing goggles, another one had him with these really shitty bangs, but the one design that kept showing up was him with this big scar down his eye and a metal bangle. And the overall design was for him just to be an evil looking version of Sonic. His quills went down like Sonic, and he even had the Nike swoosh in some of the concept arts, just like Sonic. And when you think about it, if they did go with this design for Shadow, that whole plot point of the government confusing Sonic and Shadow would make a bit more sense, since the design originally was just to be an evil dark version of Sonic. Even his original name, Terios, derived from the Japanese verb teresu, meant to compare to, which would link up with his look. There was one more design that was probably my least favorite, where he had these weirdly shaped quills and these yellow gloves. It just looked really ugly. But eventually, they landed on the most iconic look for Shadow, and a much simpler name that we all know and love today. And of course, Rouge had some changes with her character as well. Originally being called nails, she was gonna have smaller ears more akin to a real world bat. She would wear a tank top and a belt instead of her jumpsuit that she wears, and her wings would have seemed much smaller. And she had this duffel bag carrying around her, which, you know, would add on to her thief character. But eventually they ended up going with Rouge as the name and the classic design that we all know in SA2. And all I'm gonna say is that they 100% knew what they were doing. Next up, I want to look at the SA2 E3 trailer. Now, during E3, Sonic Team showed off SA2 with this trailer, and in it, we saw gameplay of City Escape, Pumpkin Hill, Green Forest, Iron Gate, and Skyrail, but with Sonic, which was supposed to be a shadow stage. On that same note, something that's interesting is that the game's trailer only focuses on Sonic, Knuckles, and Eggman, and doesn't even mention the other 3 characters as being playable. Now, we're gonna go into a bit of a theory mode here, but something that's been basically confirmed was that Tails was never supposed to be playable in SA2, but due to fan outcry, he was added into the game kind of last minute. But this trailer only shows off Sonic and Knuckles and Eggman, and Sonic being playable in Skyrail adds to the theory that possibly not just Tails, but Shadow and Rouge were never planned to be playable in the main game. Now, this is just a theory, but if this is true, then it would make sense why Shadow, Rouge, and Tails only have 4 action stages in the whole game, and why a lot of Tails stages are basically just reskinned Shadow and Eggman stages, especially Tails stages. At least with Rouge and Shadow, they feel well designed and fun to play. Tails levels just feel shoehorned into the game just because the fans wanted to play as Tails. But hey, that's just a theory. Okay! I'm sorry for the pain I have caused with this bit. Now that we have that little theory out of the way, we can look at some changes in the trial demo that we can actually confirm and see. Now, the SA2 trial demo was bundled with Phantasy Star Online 6 months before the game's launch, and only features the first level from the hero story, City Escape. Now, first off, and probably the most obvious one, is that we can see Sonic wearing his classic shoes instead of the soap shoes that could be seen in the final game. So this build was probably made way before the soap deal, or maybe they made the deal, but they didn't finish the model. After that, another big change is the music used in City Escape itself. It uses an early version of Escape from the City, but Jun Senoue only had a few demo tracks done for the game, so when listening to the song, it sounds like City Escape, but it doesn't feature the iconic lyrics. Instead, it uses a guitar as a substitute. Another big change is the logo of the game. Instead of it being the colors of red and blue to, you know, show the contrasting stories, instead it's black and white, and the logo seems a bit more simplified. When looking into the game's files, we can see that the life icon for all 6 characters are here, so it looks like they eventually did have all these characters planned to be playable at this point of the game. The icons in the demo have this shine to it, and they're positioned a bit differently than in the final version, where it has a bit more of a rougher texture and are positioned differently. And specifically, only Rouge for some reason was changed to look to the player. Another neat change is that the billboards in City Escape are a bit different. Instead of them being in-universe adverts like Chow in Space or Sonic Pizza or Soap, it's replaced with ads for Nino's Pizza, the Pixel Noise album, and ads for Phantasy Star Online. And those are the big, important, and major changes from the demo to the final game that I found interesting. Now finally, I just want to go over some other cut or changed content from the game. Now, first I want to talk about the music, because there were a few demo tracks that Jun Senoue made for the game besides City Escape, that being Radical Highway, Metal Harbor, and Mission Street. And here, I'll just let you listen to the differences and you can compare them for yourself, because there are some pretty interesting differences here. Something that's interesting is that after you get all A ranks in Green Hill Zone, which you unlock after getting all 180 emblems, you are supposed to unlock Super Sonic and Super Shadow for the 2-player mode, and they can even be activated by changing some values in the game. But when actually playing the game, they just revert to Sonic and Shadow base. Another cut feature is the world ranking system, where basically how it works is like most Sonic games do now. You can play a level online and try to get the best rank or score in these different modes. And there are remnants of different modes like time attack and score attack, and then you would have your overall ranking. It seemed like in order to play, you would have to connect to whatever service provider you had, and you were only able to select from 32 different countries, and your rank would be based on the country you selected, or you would have the choice of, seeing your rank in the whole world. There are these text images in the game that read rank list, where I'm assuming you can see your rank and the world rank, and a comment text, which I can only assume means that you can leave a comment and read comments on other people's ranks, which I don't know how that would have worked, but that sounds interesting. And it appears that you can play as every character, but there's also a question mark, which would either mean a random character would be selected, or there was another playable character that was planned but never added. This whole system seems really in-depth, and maybe it was because of time constraints or just not knowing how to properly implement it, since it was in the early 2000s and online play was in its infancy, but it would have been really cool to see this in game. And with that, those are all of the most interesting cut and changed content in Sonic Adventure 2. I have to say, when comparing it to all of the games I've covered in this series, this game seems to be the one with the most focus. It seemed like they really knew what they wanted to do with it, because besides a few cut items or features or just a couple of textures or music, this game feels really complete. It feels like they put everything they wanted, and they're even able to add some stuff. Despite the quality, they were even able to add some characters that they originally were not going to add. So it feels like out of a lot of the Sonic games I've looked at, this one seems to be the most complete. At least the most complete 3D Sonic game. But that is all I have to say, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment down below. Did you guys find this interesting? Did I miss anything? Because I know there's a lot of audio logs, textures, and just missing stuff that I skipped. But those are just little things. Also, let me know what games you want me to cover next time, because I know there's still a bunch of Sonic games that I didn't look over. So let me know in the comments what Sonic game that you specifically want me to, research and see the backstory behind it, because maybe I'm missing some game that's super interesting, I'm just not talking about it. So let me know. But yeah, that's all I gotta say for today. I'm sorry there was no video last week. Some stuff was going down in my life, but I'm gonna try to get this video out. I'll probably get it out. So if you're watching it, it's out, so I don't know I'm adding this, but that's all I gotta say. Hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye bye.